Ding.
My name is David Gronefeld, and I'm at my father's home, Wayne Gronefeld, on Highway T near Kaplan, Missouri. It's November 3rd. It happens to be a Monday, November 3rd, 2014. And I am interviewing my Uncle Gerry, who happens to be in town from California. So I would like to just ask him a little bit about what he recalls of his time growing up in St. Charles County and his experiences as he left St. Charles County and his experiences in California. So thank you, Uncle Gerry, for talking with me today.
Welcome.
First, could you tell me where you were born and when you were born?
Yeah, I was born in St. Charles, Missouri, St. Joseph Hospital, September 2nd, 1945.
And where were your parents living at that time? Do you recall?
They were living on Jackson Street in St. Charles.
And did you grow up your entire childhood on Jackson Street in St. Charles?
No, I think I was about 5 years old when we moved out to Maclay Road. Now there may have been an interim time where we lived in Cottleville for a while with Grandpa Casper, but I'm not sure about those details. My earliest recollection is, actually my earliest recollection was living in the garage while the house was being built. So we had Mom, Dad, your dad, and Uncle Dallas in the garage was our living space.
Mm-hmm.
We had outdoor facilities. I vaguely remember that. But then the rest of my childhood was at 3197 Maclay Road.
And was there, do you know anything about that property? How did Grandpa get that property? Was it a family?
Yeah, it was part of my grandpa, your great-grandpa's Gronfeld's farm. Dad initially bought, I think, an acre of land and then built a house, and then later on he bought an additional half acre, which is where the trailer sits now, Dallas trailer. And I'm not sure when he purchased that, but Grandpa's farm didn't totally surround that property, but on two sides surrounded
It was like in a corner
right
of the original, of his father's original property.
Exactly.
And did you know your grandfather and grandmother? I mean, did they live on that property when you were there? Do you
Yes.
recall them?
Yeah. There was a dirt road that went down to their house, and I could recall they had a TV, we didn't have a TV yet. So a lot of times we would go down there and watch, I don't recall what we would watch because it's been too long ago, but watch their TV. And I recall a lot of times I'd go down to see what Grandma was having for dinner, and if it was more appealing to me than what Mom was making, I'd have my dinner down at Grandma's house. It was far enough where close enough where you could walk, certainly ride your bike. And that dirt road was where I learned how to drive too. It was off the main road and we could drive up and down there. So yeah, I remember that very well. Grandma died, don't remember the date, but she died at the house, and then Grandpa lived several years after that, lived alone, and after Grandma passed away, I used to go down and make Grandpa dinner sometime and just really keep him in touch with everybody, So.
I'm trying to remember if I met him. I think I did. Would that be possible?
You know, I don't remember the year he passed away. And I can't even remember if, I think I was in high school when Grandma Gronefeld died. And I don't know if I was out of high school and in college when Grandpa Gronefeld died or not. That part I don't remember. Aunt June would certainly know probably. And maybe
I certainly remember going up and down that dirt road.
That road.
Not a lot, but I do recall the dirt road that was back there and going back there. And there was a corn crib back there. I remember a small corn crib that I used to like to climb around on because you could put your feet in between the slats.
Right. Yeah. We had permission, we could drive the pickup on the dirt road, but we couldn't drive on the McClay Road, which at that time was gravel. But we would use, or at least I can't speak for my brothers, I would drive down the dirt road and then drive up the McClay Road. Whatever I could get away with. That's before we had a driver's license. You know?
Yeah. We drove up and down the driveway here.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, Tim could get it in the third year by the end of the driveway. Not for very long. Just get in there, and no.
Yeah, I wish I could remember those dates that Grandpa and Grandma died, but don't remember.
Okay. Well, where did you attend school? Like, did you attend grade school in St. Charles? Not in St. Charles, though, right?
No, grade school was at Central School in Harvester. And then junior high was at Francis Howe High School. They had a junior high there. And at that time, seems to me they were building the new high school. And we were in buildings that were built during World War II to house military, and they were still using those facilities as a high school. I think the brick structure of Francis Howell was completed like my sophomore year in high school, I think, because I graduated from what was a new facility at that time, and I don't know if that building is still there.
No, they tore.
They did.
They tore all that down to build what's there currently, and I think they've been open. I think this is their third year. I think that building's been open. Yeah, it's completely
started fresh.
It started fresh. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I was in high school, we had basketball. That was it. No football, no soccer. So either you played basketball or you didn't play sports.
Well, soccer started when I was there.
Oh, it did?
Yeah. Now, I don't know. It could have been there before, I suppose. But I know that there was no soccer when I entered high school, and they started a soccer team while I was there.
Yeah, I don't think we had softball or baseball either. So, just basketball. And then I graduated from Francis Howell in 1963. And then graduated in June and immediately started Southeast Missouri State in Cape that summer.
That summer?
So
did you have a major field of study when you started there, or were you just investigating?
I was just investigating. And after 2 years of investigating with not stellar grades, I dropped out of school and joined the Air Force. So in 1965, I joined the Air Force and had basic training at Lackland Air Force Base. Then I got transferred to Bangor, Maine, and was there for about 3 years. And during my time at Dow Air Force Base, I went to the University of Maine, picked up some credits, enough to get me back in college.
Mm-hmm.
So then I put in for an early out to get out of Air Force 6 months early to be able to go back to college.
And they let you do that?
Yeah, they did. And it's kind of funny because I had made the application but hadn't been approved yet. And had gotten orders to go to Thailand, Bangkok, Thailand. And I was going to be working in the base hotel because the Vietnam War was still going on, but it was pretty much winding down. But there was a, oh, what do they call it? There was a facility in Bangkok where the soldiers would come for R&R. And I was going to be at that facility. Because when I was in the service, my last 2 years, I worked at the base hotel. Was a night auditor and just kind of ran the base hotel. Well, so I had the orders to go to Thailand, and I came home on leave, and while I was home on leave, my application to get out early to go back to school was approved, but I still had 6 months to serve before that was gonna take effect. So then they just transferred me, they canceled obviously my orders to Bangkok, and I went up to Whiteman Air Force Base on Knob Noster, Missouri. And I finished up my Air Force time there and then came back.
So, if I could, can I recap that? You graduated in '63,
Right.
and then you attended for 2 years. So was it '65 when you entered the Air Force?
Mhm.
And then you went to, where did you go for basic training?
Lackland Air Force Base in Texas.
Okay. And how long did that take?
Oh, 8 weeks.
8 weeks?
Yeah.
And then after that 8 weeks, you went to Maine,
Right.
and then you were there for several years, 3 years?
3.5, almost 3.5 years.
And at that point, you applied to go back to school, and during the process of you being transferred to Bangkok, that came through, and then they reassigned you to
Knob Noster.
Knob Noster, which I can't, Whiteman?
Whiteman Air Force Base. It's in just outside Sedalia.
Yeah, yeah. I know where it is, and I know because there's State Park over there in Knob Noster.
Oh, is there? Now I don't know if the base is still there. My base.
Oh, I think so.
Is it?
Well, I think they were flying stealth aircraft out of
Oh,
there,
were they?
all the way over to Iraq.
Oh,
I
okay.
thought.
Because the base in Maine is closed. The last time we went back to the Boston area, probably 3 years ago, we took a side trip and drove up to Maine because I wanted to see the base, take a look at, you know. And there was, well, there was also an international airport there, Bangkok International Airport. That obviously is still there, but that was a part of Dow Air Force Base. And there was only one barrack standing that I recognized. The rest has all been.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a base anymore. It's been decommissioned or whatever they do with the base.
So, what were your duties in the Air Force?
I can tell you, but I have to kill you.
Oh,
It's
okay.
top secret
It
crypto.
was top secret stuff?
First, I was in cryptographics, it's called, and that did carry a top secret
Mm-hmm.
security clearance. But then, probably 3 years into, well, about 3 years into it, my last 6 months or so, then I moved over to, well, I worked these, at that time, they used to have the long switchboards with the
Mm-hmm.
key tabs. And I was in charge of that for about 3 months. And I had 3 civilian operators that worked for me. But then we had Air Force staff at night that would work because it was a 24-hour shift. And then I got promoted and they transferred me to the base hotel. I can't think of the name, but. And basically what I did there was I was a night auditor and just kind of took care of the day-to-day, check people in, check people out. Most of the guests would be like family members that'd be visiting or other.
It wasn't necessarily Air Force or military personnel that were staying there. It was people that were related to.
Could be, there could be a lot of military personnel there too that would be there for maybe a 3-month assignment or something,
But it wasn't exclusively for that. It wasn't
No.
like.
No. We had, I remember one time a senator came in town, she was having a meeting at the base with some of the mucky bucks, and she stayed there, and that was quite an ordeal getting that ready and making sure the
Yes.
beer was taken out of the vending machine and soda was put in, just things like that. And then when I got transferred to Whiteman Air Force Base, I didn't work at the base hotel, but I was involved in finding housing for military personnel, either if they were moving in or moving to another facility. So that's what I did the last 6 months.
And then once you got out of the military, you attended Southeast again?
Yeah, went back to Southeast.
And I imagine you stayed down there at Southeast?
Yeah.
And you finished your degree?
Yeah, finished in, let's see, when did I graduate? 71, I guess. Something else.
And what was your degree in?
Marketing management, minor in English.
And once you finished college, where did you do? What did you do for employment then?
Well, while I was in college, I interviewed with Mobile Oil Company. They came on campus. So I interviewed with them, and after I graduated, initially I moved to Kansas City, went to work for Mobile in their marketing position, and was in training for probably about a year, and graduated out of their training program and had gotten my assignment or whatever, the territory I was going to have. I don't recall, it was either North Dakota or South Dakota. And at that time I was not happy with the program. I hated the sales end of it. And when I heard I was going to be transferred either to North or South Dakota, I thought it was time to move back to St. Louis. So I quit Mobile Oil, came back to St. Louis, and then I got a job at a company called CPAS Corporation, which is no longer there. But they were a food service distributor. So I went to work for them initially as an assistant sales manager. And did that for a while. Then I got, there was an opening in purchasing, so I applied for that and I got that. And then that was the rest of my career pretty much in the food service industry, not at CPAS, but
You purchased,
yeah, procurement, right.
and you did that in St. Louis initially.
Did that in St. Louis for, from about 73, probably for about 10 years or so. And then I moved out to California.
So it wasn't until '83 when you moved out to California. Well, I thought you were out
84.
there when I was a kid already, but maybe I'm mistaken.
Well, let me backtrack. Graduated in 72. Well, it probably was the late 80s when I moved out there.
Late '70s, you mean?
I don't know, let me think.
Because I graduated in '82 from high
Let me
school,
figure it out here.
and then I went to Kirksville. And I thought you were already an exotic person that was from California at that point.
No, it would have been 1980, maybe 1983. Because when I retired from Cisco the first time in 2008, I had been there 25 years. And I went to work for Cisco a year after I moved out here, or out to California.
Okay. Well, I must just be misremembering it. And maybe it's just because it just seems, I recall that you seem to me, that you were always at some exotic place. I think you had some, I think you went to Alaska.
No.
Did you go to Alaska? Northwest? Did you go to the Northwest?
No.
I thought you had pictures of
Maybe
like like a vacation.
vacations?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. It may have just been a vacation.
Oh, okay.
But you had pictures of
yeah,
totem poles and
yeah, that's from Seattle. I'd never been to Alaska.
But that I remember that, and I thought that was, it's like, wow, that's cool, neat stuff. So I guess
did
maybe
when I was still here. I did. We went to Europe a couple times before I moved out to California when I was in my early 20s, I guess. I've always liked traveling, so I try to do that whenever I can.
maybe that's what I just remember that you were, Uncle Gerry is back, and maybe I misinterpreted that. Maybe you're just on vacation, and I thought that you were working in these other places.
Oh.
Or I don't know.
Yeah.
That was just my impression.
Yeah, pretty much my working career has been St. Louis, initially Los Angeles for probably about the first 15 years, and then moved to San Diego.
So in '83, you went to Los Angeles, and then you went to San Diego,
yeah.
which is where you reside now. Is that
Yes.
where your residence is now?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any children? Are you married? Do you have any children?
No children. I'm married to my partner, John Amick.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 puppies as we speak. Talk about moving back to the Midwest, but don't know if it's going to happen or not.
And is John also from the Midwest?
Yeah, John's from Indiana. Huntington, Indiana is where he was born. And he has a brother that's in Indiana, and then a sister that lives in California. They just moved to California.
And how did you meet?
John?
Yeah.
Through a friend out in San Diego.
So you met out in
San Diego.
In San Diego.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how about your childhood? Are there any recollections that you have about your childhood and growing up on McClay Road? Were there any medical issues that you had, or that you recall anyone in your family having, or those types of things?
No serious medical issues. I remember vaguely, I think I was like 7, I had a ruptured appendicitis. And I can remember at that time to anesthetize you, they used ether, which I don't know if you've ever smelled ether, but it's a horrible smell. And as a kid, everything happened so quickly. Mom or Dad didn't have an opportunity to explain to me what was going to happen. I was rushed to the hospital and put under. And I can remember coming out of it and having just the most god-awful headache, because I guess I fought it as they were trying to anesthetize me, which made it worse, And then a few years later, I had to have, I was at the dentist, I had to have a tooth extracted, and they were gonna give me, or they had to give me gas because I wouldn't sit still. I didn't want the doctor anywhere near me, so they had to put me under with gas, which obviously is more expensive than not using the gas. I remember Mom getting pissed off because I wouldn't let them pull my tooth and I had a gas, and we always got ice cream after we had, went to the doctor or to the dentist or something. I didn't get my ice cream that day because I had flittered it away on the anesthetic. So. But other than that, I was a healthy kid. I never broke any bones, so.
I cannot say that.
And my memory as a child of your dad, your dad was 8 years older than me, so we never had a whole lot of interaction growing up. I had more interaction with Dallas because he was closer.
Mm-hmm.
And where we lived, there weren't that many kids around. The closest was Gary Horsebarn. He was down McClay Road. Oh geez, I'm trying to get landmarks. Well, it's before Jungerman Roads. It's right before that. So it was, it was close enough where you could walk or ride your bike. Gary was a year older, but he would rather bum around with Dallas because Dallas was cooler and older than me, so I was kind of just a tag along. And Dallas says, I was always telling on him and Gary what they would get into. And one time, they were gonna do some smoking, and they thought if they invited me along to have a cigarette, I wouldn't tell on them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I proved them wrong. They had their cigarette and I ran back and told Mom.
Did you smoke?
I probably did. I don't remember now, but
Did you tell your mother that?
I probably not. But let's see, what other recollections. Dallas was always getting his mouth washed out with soap. Never remember your father having that done. Dallas, pretty regular, pretty consistent. We were talking last night that we had Mom had a fanny paddle, which was a board with a little hole on top hanging up next to the refrigerator. And if we were doing something that she didn't feel was the right behavior, she would threaten us with the fanny paddle. And normally just the threat of the fanny paddle changed our behavior. Then if it didn't, it was, well, when your father gets home, then the fanny paddle's gonna come out. And by that time, it was usually all resolved, and so we didn't get the fanny paddle too much.
What were some of your interests growing up?
I liked photography. I remember I had a part-time job in high school at a well, first I was pumping gas at a Texaco station, but then I also had a part-time job at a Singer sewing machine company that was located down on Main Street. But I got fired from that because they sent me out to repossess a sewing machine from this family that wasn't making their payments. So I went out there with that intention to do that. And the wife answered the door and she had all these kids screaming in the background, and I listened to her sob story, and I pretty much told her, well, let me see what we can do about that. Well, I didn't have any authority. My job that day was to go out and get that sewing machine and come back with it. So when I didn't come back with the sewing machine, I got fired. But where was I going with that?
You were working at a Texaco station and you liked photography.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So the money that I was able to save from working those part-time jobs, I bought a little 35 millimeter camera, so I thought I was a big photographer then, you know. But I still enjoy it, but it's just a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, just kind of tinker around outside and stuff, and riding my bike and going down to Grandma and Grandpa's, and we helped Grandpa on the farm during the summer. And I can remember at the end of the year, it seemed like we would get $5 or $10 for the work on the farm that summer, and we were told we shouldn't spend that, save that money. Well, of course, $5 is more than it is now, but it still wasn't that much, you know, at that time.
Right.
Grandpa had cows and mules, and so whenever they would get out, us kids would go down there and help Grandpa round them up too. And that's pretty much was my childhood.
Do you remember any other specific things with working on the farm, or did you butcher? Did they butcher back on the farm, or?
Mom and Dad butchered. I don't remember Grandma and Grandpa butchered. I remember Grandpa's old John Deere putt-putt. We take that, most of his fields were back where Millwood, the backside of Millwood is now, I guess that's Millwood. So you could take the tractor out and get it out of Grandpa's eyesight or earsight and just crank that baby up. Thing would be going along. But we would plant corn. And
What did he have?
corn is what I remember mostly. I know he did wheat and oats. I don't remember him doing soybeans, but mostly corn.
Did he have livestock at all?
He had some cows, yeah. Don't remember him having pigs. He probably must have. Chickens, I know he had chickens. And then he had a couple horses. I think at one time he may have had, had mules. I think at one time he may have had a work horse or two. But mules are what I remember.
And did he use those?
He did use them, yeah, he'd use them in the fields. Yeah.
Did you ever use them?
No. I use this John Deere.
Did you take any? Did you attend any classes outside of school while you were young? Like Kevin has guitar lessons.
No, 4-H I took. I was member 4-H club at school, but we didn't have scouts or anything, so didn't do that.
And did you do any projects with 4-H? I think Dad did.
I had pigs.
Had pigs?
Yeah, that was our project. Because we raised them for food, you know. That was what we butchered. We didn't. I don't remember us having cows. Just chickens and pigs. And then the butchering was a big deal, you know. Aunt June, Uncle Paul. I don't remember Aunt Al and Uncle Mel coming out, but Aunt June, Uncle Paul would come out, and some friends of Dad's would come out. We'd butcher, and it was a big deal. It was an all-day affair, you know.
Do you remember any of your father's friends and their peculiarities, perhaps?
Probably Bill Denningman is the one that I remember most. Bill and Alice Denningman, and they all enjoyed the beer, the 3-2 beer. Dad was a big hunter, and Bill was a hunter, so they'd go hunting. I never got into that. I just really, it wasn't my thing when I was growing up.
An interesting story. I wish I looked at, what was this? I had a student last year whose father purchased the house directly behind my house in Creve Coeur.
Okay.
There was a couple that was living in it. They just left pretty abruptly, and the house was sitting empty for a while. And then this guy bought it. I think he was recently divorced, and he just needed a place, a residence, so that his kids could come and stay there. He didn't stay there most of the time, but like every other weekend, he would be out there, and he'd be out there putzing around every once in a while. But he didn't seem to live there on a regular basis. But his kids would be out there, and as it turned out, that boy that he had there was in my class. And for the life of me now, I can't remember what his last name was right now. But it wouldn't make a whole lot of difference. Well, it might make a little bit. You might, because this person was from St. Charles, but he would be more, a little older than me, maybe, but not much. Around my age, maybe a few years older than me. And his wife says that she remembers. I shouldn't say his wife because he's got recently divorced. I think his ex-wife remembered, I think it's who it was, running around over and going over to Grandpa's house.
Your grandpa or my grandpa's?
My grandpa, your father's, your house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and hanging out over there.
I wonder who that would have been.
But I can't remember what that.
Would she have been my age, or
I think she probably would have been younger than you.
Good Lord, I don't know who that
But,
was.
I mean, was that kind of a spot where people would come over and congregate in the evenings or something?
Not that I recall, no.
All right. Maybe I have but she mentioned that he mentioned that, man, it might have even been his mother. It might have even been the guy's mother.
Gosh, if you think of his last name, let me know.
What is that kid's last name? Well, I'll have to think about that for a bit.
When I was in high school, there was a group of us. God, let me think. Beverly Nellie, who's Beverly Huffman now. Joanne Hemside, who's Joanne Roth. Joyce Meyer, I don't know what her married name is. There was about 6 or 7 of us. Every Friday night would go out because all their boyfriends wanted Friday nights to go out with the guys. So we would all go out together. And we named ourselves the Fitz family. And each one of us had a name, and it was a German name like Olga, Edna, because we're all German, you know. And we'd go out and just go to the drive-in and just have innocent fun, maybe buy a 6-pack of beer for all of us, which is all we needed, you know. And so I'm just wondering if it was one of those girls. Because we did that for probably about 2 years. Every Friday. Now that sometimes there would be 1 or 2 missing because their boyfriend decided they did want to go out with them. But
we'll ask Dad.
Okay.
He might remember because I told him this story. It might have been his mother because a tree fell down in his yard and his father came over, and his father is the one that knew my grandpa, your father.
Oh.
He knew him. He worked in construction, and when I said, Martin Gronefeld, he said, "Oh yeah."
Huh.
So he was familiar with him, but boy, I can't remember what his name was. But we'll ask Dad. Maybe
Okay.
he'll remember.
But then that would have been probably a little bit older than me then.
Might have been. Might have been.
That's something for you to research.
Yeah. Okay. How about your? You mentioned a few things about your high school years. Do you remember anything else about your activities in high school?
Yeah, I was in band for a couple of years. I did play trumpet, which was a hand-me-down from Dallas, which I think was probably a hand-me-down from Wayne, your dad.
Mm-hmm.
Played basketball the first couple of years, and just generally did what high school kids do, and didn't do what high school kids should do. So, yep, that's it.
To get back to your family, I'm going to go back to some of these questions,
Okay.
so I don't forget anything. How many brothers and sisters did your family contain?
We had two older brothers, so three boys, mom and dad.
Okay. And you said you don't recall moving off of McClay Road at the time. You remember moving into the garage, which you stayed at until the house was finished.
Right.
Do you recall anything else about that? You were pretty young then, right?
Yeah, I would
5
have
or
been
so?
5 or so, yeah. So recollections are pretty
Okay. Well, both
flat.
Dad and Uncle Dallas, neither one could remember how laundry was done. Or they know she had a stove in there.
In the garage?
In the garage. There's electricity in the garage. And they brought water in, but there was no water in the garage. But they don't remember how she did laundry.
No, I don't either.
Or dishes.
As a kid, that
Yeah.
was, it just got done and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I know she had a Maytag Ringer washing machine. I even remember that from the house in the garage, in the basement. But I don't know if that was part of the garage or not. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that.
Were there any holidays that were celebrated by your family that you recall? Were there regular family events that occurred on an annual basis or biannual basis?
Yeah, Thanksgiving was always big. Christmas, obviously. Christmas, I don't remember what days we would have Christmas, but it seemed like we did our Christmas Eve. And on Christmas Day well, I know that we would rotate to different aunts and uncles for Christmas. And we did it both for the Caspers and the Gronfelds, on the Gronefeld side. So obviously we must have done weekends before or something, but I can remember going to different houses and having Christmas with all the cousins and stuff. And then we would have like every 5th year or something at our house, because that's what the circle was with the number of aunts and uncles. Dad had a water hauling business, and I can remember when I still believed in Santa Claus, we always had to go haul water. Christmas Eve, there was always a client that needed water on Christmas Eve. So I would have to go with Dad. And then when I got back, Santa Claus had come. Well, I was gone. And I don't even remember I don't know. God. Seems strange that people would order water for Christmas Eve, but you don't think about things like that at that time. You just go with the flow. And I I think the tree was decorated ahead of time. It wasn't, you know, they didn't wait till Christmas Eve and Santa Claus decorated the tree and all that rigmarole. It was just already decorated and Santa Claus came. So.
How about in the summertime? Were there picnics and?
Let's see.
Seems like Grandma used to have kind of an event around the 4th of July sometimes. Was that something that?
Yeah,
Did you have
because
a
I can
summertime?
remember we always had fireworks. I don't know. I don't remember the whole family being there. If it was just our family, I'm not sure about that. But I know Dad always had fireworks. Always bought fireworks for us.
Well, I remember putting my hand through the window of the garage playing baseball or
Oh, yeah.
football or something in their backyard at one of those. I think all the Casper folks were there.
Oh, really?
Uncle Milt and Aunt Al and Aunt June, Uncle
Oh.
Paul, and I guess we had enough people to play a game of ball or something. First base was the windowsill of the kind of right over there by, or I don't know if that was really first base, but that's over there by the window in the garage. And I put my hand through the window. I didn't get hurt. I mean, I just busted the window.
Hard enough to bust the window out.
Yeah, oh yeah, I busted the window.
Now, I remember we went up to Grandpa Casper's a lot when he had the tavern in Cottleville. We'd go up there and then Aunt Bud and Uncle Ruth would usually be out there, and Aunt June, Uncle Paul. I think Aunt Al and Uncle Milt came out. Yeah. We spent a lot of Sundays up at Grandpa Casper's. But I think I remember the Christmas get-togethers mostly with the families, weddings and all that stuff. You know, that we all celebrate that.
No idea who it is.
Mom was really close with her siblings, with Aunt Al, Uncle Russ, Uncle Bud, Aunt Ruth. They loved getting together and talking about their childhood. And I can remember, especially when Aunt Jack was up from Nashville, Aunt Jack and Mom, Aunt Al and Aunt June would all be sitting around Mom's table in the dining room, and they'd be talking and laughing. And I can remember as a kid, I'd come in, and you could tell they were talking about something that they didn't want the kids to hear, because the subject would change and the demeanor would kind of change until you left the room, and then you would hear them just laughing. They had the best time talking about their childhood and what they did growing up. And even in later years, when they would get together, they really did enjoy each other's company and enjoy talking about the times when they were kids, you know, growing up. Those are very vivid memories of my mom and Aunt June and Al.
So do you remember, forgot my train of thought there for a moment. I had something I wanted to follow up on, but it slipped my mind now.
An old timers.
Yeah. Did your family attend church regularly?
Yes, Dad didn't, but Mom and Dallas Wayne and I did usually. You sat upstairs. St. John's Evangelical and Reformed in St. Charles, where we went to church. And we go Sunday school first and then church.
And how did you get there?
'69 Chevy, I remember. Before that, I don't know what we had.
Did you have
I don't
a,
put
did,
my,
did Grandpa have a work vehicle? And then there was like a family car? Did he have a truck? He always had a
he always had a
truck
pickup, yeah.
that I
And-
remember.
Yeah, we always had a family car.
Hmm.
To my, as long as I can remember. I can remember there would be times when Wayne was in college, and if he came home from college and used the car for a date, and if Dad was out someplace with the pickup, I think I can remember Dallas a couple of times going, taking a dump truck, one of Dad's dump trucks on a date. And there were times when I took that dump truck in to work when I was working at the Texaco station, because either the car was out with somebody or both other vehicles were out. That's the only mode of transportation I had, so I'd get in a dump truck and drive it to work.
So what other vehicles did your father have besides his pickup truck and the family vehicle? You said he had a dump truck.
Dump truck.
Did he have more than that, or was that it?
Well, he had heavy equipment because he was a construction, did construction. I don't know if he had more than one dump truck or not, but that's what he used to haul water to. And he would just take the tank off, and if he was going to use a dump truck for something else, then put it on when he had to haul water.
So he had one dump truck that he
To
would
my
also
knowledge.
use to haul the water as
Right.
well.
Yeah, the tank fit right in that dump truck. And we go down for Low Town to the waterworks on Main Street, fill it up with, seems like it was like 1,500 gallons of water. And take them out, because there was no city water past St. Charles, so you had to rely on cisterns, which that's was Dad's business, you know. And then I can remember